Welcome to SAs and IPAs, presented by CDI Studios.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to SAs and IPAs. I am Michael Colonno. I'm the AVP of the Data Center Solutions team here at CDI, and I'm joined by two new guests. I do not have a co-host today, sadly, but I don't think we need one because we have two studs here. So if you want to go first, Fred.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Michael. Fred Silverman. I'm a channel SE at Rubrik, actually.
Okay.
I've been here for about 2 years now, which feels like, a long time, but, it's great. But with that said, thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Dan?
Yeah, Dan Gross, Senior SE, been with Rubrik about 5.5 years, and feels even longer than that, like Brett said. But yeah, thanks for having us on.
So I don't know if anybody listening to this just caught that, but this is our first episode that we have somebody outside of CDI. So that's a big change of events. Not that we ran out of CDI employees, but I figured it was time to kind of reach out and start to engulf other people, within the industry. So you might start to see some of our customers, you might start to see other vendors and things pop in and out. So I thought it'd be nice because, once again, this is about enriching our community of technical sales or technical people that are influential, to decision making, right? So,
Sure.
So Fred, so one of the things that we always talk about is people getting into this kind of motion of being an influencer within technology, not TikTok, is there's a breaking point in your career,
Yes.
right? There's a breaking point personally, possibly also, and it's the same thing. There's a line, just like when I ask somebody, what's the booze they don't drink anymore? There's always a story,
Sure.
right? So I want to know, one, what's that booze that you won't drink anymore? And two, what's your story of how you even got into technology?
Sure, absolutely. So full disclosure, I'm not much of a drinker, but with that said, I guess I was a bit of a late bloomer. And
Okay.
I remember one of the first jobs I've had was at Movie Phone, 777 Film. So folks might not know what that is, but with that said, it was a holiday party. And that was the first time
He
for
doesn't
me,
know what that is.
mixing beer and alcohol. And I didn't know, I was just having fun. And then long story short, I was in a cab on my way home and I was so close to just getting to my apartment in Brooklyn and I just didn't make it. But yeah, so for me,
Liquor before beer, you're in the clear. Come on.
lessons learned.
I mean, if someone wants to write that down, if you don't know that, I'm just kidding.
So yeah, certainly a life lesson for me. But certainly, my career, I've done quite a bit. I've been working for over, I want to say 24 years now. And I started off doing corporate IT. And I've done that for a while. I want to say I was working for a big accounting firm, one of the big four, for 12 plus years. And it was great because it was great, for me, it was a great opportunity to start in maybe doing desktop support
Sure.
and working my way up within the organization to a network administrator. That was the holy grail for me. It was
Nice.
I know Val, I got certified. I was
Val, nice.
that was the best, right? So, but yeah, long story short for me, it came a time where I needed to move on, right? And that was such a hard choice. I felt like I was gonna climb Mount Everest, to be honest, because I'm leaving a company that all my friends are at. I've been there for 12 years. It was such a hard decision.
Yeah, it's a family at that point.
It is a family.
Yeah.
It is 100%. And it was one of these jobs where I was in the office every day. We had, team meetings every week, whatever. And, you get to know everyone very well. And it was hard, but it was the right decision for me. And then it gave me an opportunity to jump around a little bit.
Yeah.
And, thankfully I was able to, get over this fear, if you will, of starting over. And then at that point, it gets maybe a little easier. So I want to say I've had maybe 4 jobs over a span of maybe 5 years, right? But it became easier. And it gave me the opportunity to actually find a job in pre-sales.
Sure.
And it was an interesting story for me because I was working for Accenture at the time. And there was, we're managing the data center and there was a Nimble appliance that's going to be installed, right, in the data center.
Nice.
And they're like, oh, you know what, there's training coming up. We should probably, do you want to go to the training the next day? I'm like, you know what, I don't think I'm going to go. It's not really for me. And at the time, my manager was like, no, you should go. It's free training. This is going to help you out. It's going to have the Nimble appliance. So sure enough, I did the training.
Nice.
And, timing, I think, is everything too. It's your connections, right? And it gave me the opportunity to meet someone at the training. and I was able to get a position with Nimble maybe shortly after,
Yeah.
and it kind of got me, I feel, where I am today at Rubric.
That's awesome. Well, so let me explain something to everybody watching, because we are famous for terminology, acronyms, things like that. We never actually define things half the time. So you said you're in the channel. So for those of you that don't know what that is, partners that sell a vendor, part of that network of that partnership between a vendor and that partner, there's a channel. There's a channel that we get enabled in terms of beneficial trainings, access to development pipelines, roadmaps, things like that, right? So Fred works in that channel network of enriching us as a partner along those lines. So I, once again, am in charge of a lot of our trainings and everything. So Fred is my partner when it comes to training our SAs, SEs, and all things Rubric for you right now. But yeah, I just want to define that, because a lot of times we say those things, and if one of our customers is watching or somebody else, like, they're like, what the heck does that mean, right? So same question. So first, I know you have a booze that you don't drink, but
I do. Yeah, mine's Jack Daniels. I can't touch it anymore. I can't smell it. I can't watch you drink it.
Yeah. Well, that's why I always ask that, because it's something that right now you smell it in your nose. Like, there's an emotion that's attached to this.
Yeah.
And like the same thing, like I said, sometimes happens with why you became some sort of pre-sales, is because there was a line in the sand. So there was maybe a moment or a conversation or something that was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not an administrator anymore, or whatever it is. So do you have one of those defining moments?
I do. Yeah. So my time was before Rubric. I was at Commvault, and
Okay.
I did tier 1, tier 2 support, and I was there for maybe 3 years doing this. And I just every day was just seeing the product broken and hearing customers that weren't happy with the solution. And I kind of got disillusioned with
It's ties that media agent wrong.
stop virtualizing them, whatever it is. And then, there was an event at the office, and then, I saw the sales engineers and the reps, and like, on the support side, everybody's just like kind of miserable. But then on the other side, they're like happy-go-lucky, and it's the best solution ever. And then, the customers that they bring in to tour the premises were always happy, and, I thought I was on the wrong side of the tracks there.
Yeah,
So,
I get
I
that.
made a conscious decision. You know what? I'm going to really start pivoting, and I started taking on different roles in support that would help bolster, sales career. So doing things like training and being more customer focused,
Yeah.
Enabling people and sticking to that side of things.
How's that going?
It's going great, man. It's going great. So I made the pivot to Inside SE, and then from there over to Rubric, and I haven't looked back. I'm
That's awesome.
happy with the decision, and it was about there.
Yeah.
The pivot. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it being internal support or administrator, even sometimes, it's almost like being a restaurant manager, right? Like, when's the last time you pulled a restaurant manager over and said like, hey, everything was fantastic all the time?
Yeah.
You don't do that, right? Like, rarely do people give compliments or kudos. Like, so often they're just negative,
Sure.
So that's like what I worked at a knock desk. I understand. No one was ever a happy person when they called us. Someone was like, hey, thank you for making my name change on my phone.
Yeah.
Like that's not what it is. You spelled my name wrong.
It's because what motivates people is anger.
Yeah.
So to go out there and call. You ever seen Google reviews? I mean, it's always,
It's true. Well, the best thing is always Yahoo reviews, because those are the best. Not that that's even, I don't even know if that's a thing.
Yeah.
But I still go back and read some of those things, because they have like whole threads and Reddit threads of like old Yahoo answers. Those are fantastic.
They are.
Still one of the best things that has ever happened, and they did pull it down, was, have you ever gone through the threads of the sugar-free gummy bears?
I think the effects on people.
Yeah.
Does that have? Yeah.
Oh, man.
Amazon reviews.
Anybody watching this, if you have not done that, that is the best thing that's ever happened. My wife and I were not even we weren't married yet. We sat on. One of us was on a love seat, the other one was a couch, and we just went back and forth and scrolled, and we would take turns reading. We had to stop because we were hyperventilating.
Yeah. Amazon's a good collection of all of them now.
Yes.
So once again, we're here to one, obviously build your kind of story, but also build the story of other people, right? So you went through that transition, you got to where you are. You're both influential in your positions of something, you towards like us and other partners like us, and you in terms of like other like customers or other partners, even while you're through a sales cycle or something, right? So along those lines, like, so for yourself, if you're with a customer, is there anything, anything in particular that you like to do in a room, or now in a WebEx or a Zoom, like for you guys at Zoom, right? Sure. Is there anything like when you're conveying benefits or pros, cons, is there anything that like you like to focus on, in terms of like how you convey it?
Sure. I think what's important is making sure you listen to the customer and get what they're saying. And, I think a lot of times from what I've seen, things get muddied, and you're always thinking about the message you want, where you kind of are already thinking about your response while you're listening to the customer, and it kind of gets muddied. So I think it's important to really use what they say and listen to their pain, and then start architecting your response back to them. And what I find effective is whiteboarding. Really, through Zoom, I've used the Microsoft Surface and write it out. But
okay. I was going to ask you what you use.
Yeah, so as the customer's explaining things, I'm drafting things out. So that way, when it comes time for, our position, hey, this is what you've told us. They're able to visualize as well as read, and then they can reaffirm or tell you, maybe I heard something wrong, right? And it allows me to adjust the messaging on the fly. But I think that provides a lot of value, because at the end of the day, the customers are coming to you with a problem, and it's my job to try to fix it, right? Or help them.
Yeah. I love that, because I don't remember what episode it was, but one of our own internal SAs wrote, like, what are your top things? Like, what do you think your top 3 things are in a meeting, or something like that? I can't remember exactly what it was. And my first thing was listening. And I think that's one of those skills that you have to develop, whether you're in an interview, whether you're in a meeting, internally, externally, right, is listening.
Sure.
You may be passionate about whatever the story is you have to tell, whether it's you're a vendor or you're someone that's conveying a message, but you have to, one, listen to hear what the problem is, right? But also, I actually read, no, this was a podcast. I was listening to a podcast, and it was talking about how you need to, anytime you think you want to talk, sometimes hesitate, because the customer, or you internally, your customer as well higher up, will build the problem. You can't jump in to try to solve their problem. Like the joke on, like, Instagram always is like, husbands, like, if your wife's trying to vent and you're trying to like solve their problem, like, don't. It's the same thing with customers. Like, you have to just listen and let them tell you their story. One, they'll probably feel better and think that you're more of a trusted advisor than just trying to sell them something, right? But I love that. I do love that. So for Fred, I don't know if you ever try to pick up new partners as part of like everything, but like how, like, I almost feel worse for you in terms of this, because most partners aren't dedicated towards a product in a space, right? That's right. So like, what do you think are ways that you try to influence, like, that's not in like a direct salesy way, like the value of whatever the product is that you're trying to represent?
Sure. So one of the things that I try to take advantage of is that Rubrik has a great framework of just like a hands-on workshops. And when I was at Nutanix, we had something very similar. And I just feel like, there's no shortage of vendors talking to our channel community about why their product is so great. And here's PowerPoints that just speak to that, right? And we've all been to these meetings where death by PowerPoint, look, unfortunately, it's a thing, right?
I'm awful at PowerPoint, just
at the end of the day, I like to think.
No, I just feel like I will have a slide. I talk about 5 slides ahead of whenever that is, and then I'm like, yeah, we'll just skip past this stuff.
But yeah, at the end of the day, for me, like, I feel like I'm a techie at heart, and I need to like really believe in the tech and enjoy the tech and see the tech work. And that's what, for me, that sells me on things, right? So when I was at Nutanix, I had the opportunity to bring like a real hands-on experience to our partner community with this labs and frameworks. And I think I dragged you across some sessions as well, where we did some ransomware workshops, right? And I just feel like it's just like having that hands-on experience just speaks to the tech out there, and it's like, there's no smoke and mirrors here. Like, this is how it works.
Yeah, I like that. Because if you think about it, most of the people we're all talking to are an engineer of some kind, right? And an engineer is that person that might not have been able to study that chemistry book, but when they went to the lab, got an A. Because when they did it, they were fantastic. So I like that. And that's true. It's getting the technology in a person's hands to actually see it, feel it, touch it type of thing. And what's funny is our fearless leader, Rob Owen, was supposed to be on today, and I'll pick on him because he's not. But one of the things he always talks about is like, because he talks about whiteboarding, and one of the things he talks about in general, but on one of the episodes, like 1 or 2, about how it's the earliest form of storytelling was cave drawings,
Sure.
right? So how like literally drawing stuff on a whiteboard is like the most natural thing for us ever, because it's actually visually depicting, the story of what you're trying to do to help this person or what their problem is or whatever. I wonder if that is a skill we lost during the pandemic.
It's possible. One of my, favorite meetings was always the lunch and learn, right? We're always involved in person, eating. I think it always kind of helps disarm everybody. Like, let's just relax, let's take a beat, and, whiteboarding. And I found it very powerful to start transitioning into the Zoom, and I've done internal trainings at Rubrik pushing this, out, like, hey guys, this is important. I think it helps, to your point, the visualization.
So I want to say VMware and Nutanix and somebody else too. So I've been to a lot of conferences, and some of the ones I've gone to that were channel only, because I don't want to say every, but a lot of vendors have the focus sessions where it's like the internal SAs, but it's also, us as partners. And a couple of them actually had sessions on whiteboarding. And it went through how you draw things, what colors you use, things like that. And it's like, this is a fantastic class. Like, because there are things that, like, you don't even think about the psychology of, like, how to not draw things through things, or how to organize pictures in the right way, or what colors to use to stand out, blue or green or red or black, they're the usual colors, right?
Red, right? Because it's right? Always the other side.
Cross hatching. But why I even wanted, so it's interesting. So it's funny because you said Microsoft Surface, and we have so many Apple bigots out there where like a lot of people I know had an iPad, would also join whatever that is and then draw on that. At the beginning of the pandemic, Rob and I actually did some testing, because I've always been a big whiteboarder. I always get up and start doing whatever it is, right? So I found a couple of products on Amazon with stylists and things like that artists use to see if they
the boards, right?
the boards.
Yeah.
The problem is the smaller one is almost impossible to use. You have to get one of the bigger ones that's a little more expensive, because it mimics more like what a screen size is, because nobody really has these screens like this, like the small one is. So that was the initial feedback. So I offered it to a lot of my SAs. Most of the SAs that are whiteboarders, they already had a tablet, like you kind of said, in terms of like drawing. But I agree that's something that it's hard to take out of it, so like a lot of our guys, what they realized was easier is a lot of the whiteboarding features in the collaboration tools at that point were very immature, right? So what we started using a lot was OneNote, because it has snap shapes. So if I do like this, it will make it a square.
That's
like
a great tool too.
So that's what we use for a lot of things.
And what's nice too, just to one more point, Microsoft has a whiteboard app, right? You can access it anywhere you have your login, right? So iPad, whatever. And what's nice is sometimes a customer, you'll go through the solution, everything will be done. Fast forward 2 years, something comes up where maybe they're not happy with something that's going on. It's useful to be able to pull up a whiteboard that maybe you did 18 months ago and say, guys, like, this is what you told us. This is what was affirmed, right? Not go down the customer street. Sometimes new individuals come in, they weren't aware of what happened before. Right. But it's always good to be able to have the receipts, right? So I think that's also a powerful aspect of it as well.
I like that. I'm going to take a quick pause, and we always like to pause and kind of rate the beer. So this is Einstock. No, it's not. It's Einstock. I saw the Viking on the side. I had a lot of red in my beard today. So I was like, I'm feeling this Viking beer. So not beard, but beer. It's from Iceland. Personally, I've always wanted to go to Iceland, side note, because I don't know if you've ever watched like Instagram or Facebook where they go to like the springs, and it's basically like a saltwater pool, where you see like mountain and like other things.
It's gorgeous. It's Reykjavik, right?
It's one of the places. Yeah, it's the biggest. I mean,
it's the only city.
Yeah, it's like one of the only cities. Yeah, but it's a nice. It's an Arctic pale ale. I like it. I think I would give it, if I were to rate it, not that we're like Dave Portnoy or anything like that, but along those lines, I'd give it like a 7.5.
7.5?
Okay.
I'm
I'm not a beer guy.
I know you're
personally,
not.
So
I
I'm
know.
going to say like an 8 because it tastes pretty good. I like
It is. It's clean.
Yeah, it's clean. It's
clean.
refreshing.
Yeah. I'm a low class beer drinker. Like I usually drink, Coors Light, Bud Light,
Oh, well, Kyle was here. He would drink that
For
one.
me, it doesn't matter, right? But this, has a
I
nice
love
taste.
this. I'm just
Yeah, this
making
is
fun of
good.
everybody
I think this is a
sitting
nice
here.
taste.
Yeah, this
it's
is a good choice.
It's good.
It was good. I figured, yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
I knew you weren't really a beer guy. So I wanted to go with something that, like, I wasn't going to. I murdered some of the people in the beginning with, like, fruited sours and things like that that were, like, 11%, things like that. And it's just like, and we learned very quickly that Kyle does not like fruited sours, first of all. That was a fun experiment. But yeah. But so another fun fact is your sister works here at CDI, doesn't
She
she?
sure does.
She does.
She's an ops.
So you get to get all the dirt. Nice.
For what she tells me, I gotta push kind of hard.
So I'm going to pick on her for a minute and give her a little shout out. So she came up to me during our last sales kickoff, and as everybody watching can tell you, is I love feedback, whether it's personally or for the show or whatever it is. So we have an email address, SAs and IPAs at cdillc.com. Please email us with any feedback. Same thing with online. She came up to me and everybody was telling me like, hey, she's looking for you. I'm like, what? I don't know what is going on. I thought she was angry at me, like a deal that we were doing. I didn't respond or whatever it was. And she finally cornered me and she had great feedback. She basically said, that I want to learn a little bit more about the people you have on, whether it's internally, externally, whatever it is. I want to connect with that person a little bit more, not just whatever, because, though it's great information for some of the different career building things and things like that. But, I want to know a little bit about that. And that's even part of the reason why, we've tried to have a little bit of a takeaway, as well as the new progression of like the SA shots that we like to do as well.
Sure.
But it was just funny. It was funny how she aggressively wanted to give me feedback, which is great. I was very happy.
Yeah, she told me about, she was trying to track you down to talk to you. That's one of the things I've seen from her because, before tech, she was at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, right?
Yeah.
And then she went to CDW and then, here. And she always really wanted to embed and learn more, right? She has a thirst for knowledge. So it seemed to work out well for her now so far, right?
Unfortunately, IT is one of those, you never stop.
Right.
I know when I first started, like I never thought, like I was like, I've always I have a learning disability, so testing has never been my strong suit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I got into the wrong career, but that just constantly has learning and testing and certifications and things like that, at least in the beginning of my career. So actually, let me ask the question. So as another kind of fun fact for the channel, for those of that you might not know, is you have to be your partnership level is based on education, specialization, things like that, right?
Yeah.
So we have to have a certain number of experts in whatever the technology is to get to qualify for different things, right? Internally, what does that look like for you guys? Like, do you have to have those same certifications, or is it different classes, or is it conveying information a certain way? What?
So on the SE side of things, I think there's certainly a bunch of mandatory trainings that get pushed down. We have multiple tools on our end for, almost like a university where you can go ahead and pursue knowledge for your own edification, right, and your own career betterment. I don't know if it's the same level of certifications as the partners, but, obviously we're getting also training on things that are yet to come.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
I think on your guys, it's more after GA code is released.
Yeah.
Right? So it's a continuing learning process. You're never done, right?
Yeah,
Always bring in new workloads, new techs. Compared to when I first started and we basically only did 3 things.
Right.
Now, what a massive transformation.
Sure.
Sometimes I look back and it's crazy about everything we.
That's why I kind of joked in the beginning because I said it's 2 years, but it feels like it's longer just because there's so much change that's happened. And that's one of the things that I personally thrive on, the fact that, every day is different for me and we're constantly learning new things. I mean, our messaging is constantly evolving. We're constantly, we just acquired a company, Rubric, whatever. So now it's a whole security, product that we're going to learn. And, it really keeps us and me personally on my toes because I'm constantly reinventing myself in terms of my messaging and my pitch and my demo, and which is great, right? I think everyone's different for sure, but I think the worst thing for me is to have a job where I'm just doing the same thing every day kind of thing, where a company like, Nutanix and Rubric, we have the opportunity to learn new things all the time and constantly, pick up new technology and stuff.
So let me ask something about security. So security is top of mind for a lot of people.
Sure.
Not specific to your company, but what do you think are really the drivers of? Do you think it's just that impending threat of like when, not if? Like, what do you think are for your customers are just pushing towards a solution? Doesn't need to be you guys, just a solution in general.
Sure. I think it's definitely thinking about when, not if.
Yeah.
I think that's the top of everybody's mind. And I think, the world is changing, right? And I think everything's gotten smaller, right? Everything is interconnected, and it's been that way for a while, but I think that the bad guys have really focused in on how important and critical and valuable data is.
Yeah.
And, they're really pushing for, being able to hurt, organizations, and it's becoming more widespread. And it used to be just state-sponsored actors, but now you have startups basically with their own levels of support. You have a ticketing system,
Ransomware as a service.
Yeah, ransomware as a service on the dark web, and it's just becoming more widespread. So I think that's really resonating with the security verticals within organizations.
Yeah.
They don't want to be on the news, as we see so many times week after week. So they're really looking for solutions that can check the boxes for them.
Sure.
A lot of our messaging has had to pivot to follow that. Is security, and I'm sure CDI as well. I mean, we're colors, right?
And what's interesting to me is I think it was one of those things for a while that was driven by cyber insurance. It was driven by reactionary types things that might have happened to you. And now I don't remember how long it was, especially based on when this comes out. Vegas was like down.
Yeah.
Right. MGM. Right.
MGM, and there was other ones too that came out that they weren't paying the ransom and everything. So I mean,
even if you pay, sometimes the decryption itself can take weeks.
That's
so
right.
it's just it's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, and you start to see what the thing that we're seeing the biggest issue is like a lot of times like. Especially in enterprise, they have every tool there is.
Sure.
So like it's just so funny. I feel, we had one of our leaders in that space, and I almost feel bad for them because there's just so many tools, period, that they have to learn. I mean, there's no shortage of tools that I have to deal with, but there's a new startup like every day of some security tool, right? And you only are as good sometimes as like the correlation of some of those things too, because like. Security people have to deal with, like, I feel like, backup space, hypervisor space, storage space. Like, all you need to do is go back to a last good, and you're basically done. The security team have to do a full forensic report of, like, how did they get in, remediation, how can we isolate this? Is it going to come back? Did we close whatever gaps? How do we close those gaps? How do we tighten? Like, so, I mean, like, I almost, I don't feel... Like, it's hard to appreciate how awful that must be to have to go through all that. Because I sit through a lot of meetings of just correlation of these products, of like, you guys have kind of changed your story, excuse me, to security and some of that stuff as well to help provide some of that information. But they might have a dozen other things.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Right.
And it's now like, well, how do I tell where all those things are coming from to even like to go? I mean, for a long time, it was just spam filters. It was that thing like, hey, here's pictures from this weekend.
Sure.
First someone clicks on it. But now it's all kinds of these creative.
It's organization wide.
Yeah.
And I think a big thing that we're accomplishing is breaking down those walls between the organizations. Because you're right, backup recovery guys, security guys, like they need to work together, right?
Yeah.
To full remediation and move forward. It's not just let's recover the last good backup, because what if there's something in there that's going to be
that's dormant, right? Yeah.
So also legal and compliance need to be involved. So you really need a holistic tool that breaks down those barriers and has all the teams work together for a common goal. And I think a big part of that is you really have to practice and train, just like you were talking about earlier with the various workshops that we do and the tools that we provide. Because you have to dry run it. You have to be ready for winter day, just like anybody has to practice for train for a marathon. You need to train for this attack, and that way it's second nature. The recovery starts going in a smooth process.
Yeah, 100%. We recently came out with a feature with our product where we give customers the ability to have that attestation, right?
Yeah, sure.
Could actually, the C-suite's always asking IT, if we get hit by an attack, how fast can we recover, right? And it's like, well, we think we know, but how do you really prove that, right? And it's hard.
Yeah, and it's funny. We're known for our my team's known for our making sense of decks, where we make sense of different technologies that are parallel, right? And one of the ones that we keep on talking about that we're going to do that we haven't done yet is like data governance. That's one. And another one that I started thinking about is ones that have that ability to do an isolated recovery of some kind or checking or whatever, right? The term air gap gets thrown around a lot. But, in general, just that ability to have something segmented. And I mean, for the longest time, that was something that Cisco pitched for their blade centers and things like that was, well, you can do isolated VLANs, so you can have an isolated area and things like that. Zerto always said that for bubble tests and SRM, for bubble tests of DR and things like that. Like, I feel like almost there needs to be like a bubble deck, right? Bubble deck for backup, bubble deck for, whatever. Just like what products give me a bubble? Yeah. So I can have that testing so they can do that forensic work even.
And that was the feedback that Ruber got from our customers as well. And what I like about the company too is that the technology is so flexible that we could actually implement things based on customers' feedback. And customers have asked for that same thing. And, thankfully with this latest release, we have the ability to have this isolated testing, forensics. And the thing of it is, it's all pretty easily to get started, right? So you have to define the blueprints and the applications. Sure. But once it's all kind of baked in, you're just executing it and you're seeing how long things take to spin up.
Yeah. It's something that's nice with modern technology, right? If you look at even most hardware companies, they're really software companies that just have hardware to deliver their software. Yeah. So, you have that agility overall, right? Yeah, that's definitely nice. So let me ask this: if I was coming up in the industry and I wanted to be your position, what do you think would be good advice to get to where you are?
Sure. I mean, so for me personally, like I didn't start off in my career as a channel SE, right? So like I did corporate IT in the past, and then I was a field SE for a little while. And I think what resonated for me is the fact that I could stay close to the technology and you also work with really smart people, right? So certainly the smart people in Rubric, that's great. And, at the end of the day, like I just feel if I'm working with smart people, like through osmosis, maybe I'll get a little smart too, right? So with that said, like, I just feel that if a person's interested in being in the channel, if the idea of like working with other folks in terms of enablement, in terms of like growing champions, if that's something that resonates with you, I think being a channel SC is like perfect because it's a great opportunity for you to stay close to the tech, as well as have great relationships with folks and build champions and, all that.
I like it. How about you, sir?
So I think, you need to have a passion and a knack for tech itself, but, you hit a crossroads where, do you want to stick with a purely technical role or do you want to go towards, a more sales focused role? And you got to ask yourself, do you enjoy dealing with people?
Right.
Really, like, do you enjoy?
No, I shouldn't really ask myself that question.
But I got a lot of friends in tech, and they I tell them, like, you work in a data center. I'm like, I couldn't do what you do, and they say I couldn't do what you do either, right?
Right.
So you really have to ask yourself at that pivotal moment. I like tech, but do I also, want to engage with people that want to solve problems, or do I want to take the other track, which is just as valid, to continue to support the product from the other side? Right?
Yeah.
So I think really at that pivotal moment, you ask yourself, what track you want to go. I think both are valid, right? But if you really enjoy helping people, helping their problems, then, sales engineer, solutions architect might be the path for you.
Nice. I like it. All right. Well, thank you both for being here. I really appreciate it on this first episode with somebody outside of CDI. You're quasi CDI, right? Through blood. So
something like that.
It's kind of like our maiden voyage, but,
That's
it.
Yeah.
But cheers, everybody. Thank you for joining. Once again, we love feedback, so please send it in. Cheers.
SAs and IPAs is a production of CDI Studios and is produced by Alyssa Hall and Spencer Grogan. To learn more about CDI, you can visit cdillc.com.